Good afternoon. Welcome to the Boland Report, special edition. Today's going to be a short show. Presidential Donald Trump has completed his course of treatment for COVID-19 and can return to public engagement this weekend. His physician has said. Dr. Sheen Coney said the president has responded extremely well to medication and remained stable. Mr. Trump earlier pulled out of the next Thursday TV debate with Democratic rival Joe Biden after organizers said it would have to be a virtual debate. Trump, in a video posted on social media, standing in front of the White House, unveiled plans to release a similar drug that they said that he had access to, and the government has emergency stockpile ready. Let's play that clip from yesterday.
We are making tremendous progress with this horrible disease that was sent over by China. China will pay a big price for what they did to the world and to us. But we have medicines right now, and I call them a cure. I went into the hospital a week ago. I was very sick. And I took this medicine, and it was incredible. It was incredible. I could have walked out the following day. The impact it had. And we're going to make that and others that are similar to it, almost identical, we're going to make them available immediately. We have an emergency use.
As you heard, in a memo released by the White House on Thursday evening, Dr. Comey said Mr. Trump was displaying no signs to suggest progression of the illness. Saturday will be the day 10 since his last Thursday diagnosis, and based on the drastically advanced diagnosis the team has been conducting, I fully expect the president to safe return to public engagement. At that time, the memo added. On Thursday, the commission organizing the second presidential debate in Miami, Florida, on October 15th said it would have to take place remotely because of Trump had tested positive for the coronavirus. In response to that, Mr. Trump said he's not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. At the moment, it appears that a debate could take place on October 22nd, although in what form remains to be unseen. The first presidential debate on September 29 descended into insults and interrupting the vice president's debate on Wednesday night between Mike Pence and Kamala Harris was far more measured affair. The U.S. election will be held on November 3rd. Latest opinion polls suggest Mr. Biden has a high single-digit lead naturally over Trump, but the outcome is often decided in battleground states where the race can be so much closer. Mr. Trump, in response to an interview with Fox Business Channel, said he was not too prepared to sit behind a computer. He was visibly upset about that. Joe Biden said the president changed his mind every second, and his campaign team added that Mr. Trump clearly does not want to face questions from the voters. The Trump campaign answered back with manager Bill Stephan saying the commission decision to rush to Joe Biden's defense with pathetic, adding that Mr. Trump would hold a rally instead of the same date. The Biden team then proposed a town hall style debate set for Miami should go ahead on October 22nd instead. This brought a brief moment of agreement, the date at least. However, the Trump team said there should be a third face-to-face debate on October 29, just 5 days before the general election. The Biden team said that debates could only be scheduled on those 3 days already agreed on: September 29, October 15, and October 22nd. On October 15, Mr. Biden will now take part in his own primetime event on ABC, answering questions from voters. Quite what format any Biden-Trump debates take now is hard to pin down. Addressing the issue on his health, Mr. Trump said, "I am back because I am perfect physical specimen." He said he had stopped taking most therapeutic, but was still taking steroids and would be tested for COVID again soon. But although his doctor said he's now showing no symptom, questions still remain about when the first president first became infected and whether he could still be contagious. The Trump administration has imposed sanctions on 18 major Iranian banks in one of the most extensive such move by Washington against Tehran in months. The order will also penalize non-Iranian institutes trading with them, effectively cutting the banks off from the international financial system. The U.S. say it could seeking to choke off Iran access to funds to pursue what regards as aggressive activity. Iran, U.S. ambassador accused the U.S. of committing economic terrorism. The latest measures comes weeks after the U.S. declared the return or slapback of U.S. sanctions on Iran that were lifted under a 2015 international deal over Iran nuclear program, accusing Iran of having breached that agreement. Other members of the UN Security Council, however, are not in agreement with the U.S., saying Washington cannot trigger the snapback mechanism because it abandoned the nuclear deal in 2018. This latest U.S. move acts upon a presidential order signed by Donald Trump in January after a missile attack in Iran on U.S. airbase in Iran. The attack was in retaliation for the U.S. killing Iran in Iraq of top Iranian commander general who's controlling Iran proxy force across the Middle East. The U.S. Treasury did not say which allegation against most of the banks, but said 16 at the institute were being sanctioned for what is termed Operation Iran Financial Sector. One for links to already sanctioned banks, and another for being a military affiliation bank. Significantly, the sanction also target foreign companies that also do business with the banks, giving them 45 days to cease secondary sanctions. Announcing the measures, U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve said that the U.S. sanction program will continue until Iran stops to support a terrorist activity and ends its nuclear programs. He said the latest targets of sanction will continue to allow for humanitarian transaction to support the Iranian people, such as in farming, food, and and health. However, observers say foreign banks are likely to be uncomfortable with trading, even with those exempt areas, because of the risk being penalized. Iran has denounced the move by the U.S., which has come weeks after the U.S. A week ahead of the U.S. presidential election. Its ambassador, U.S. said it was a form of state terrorism and economic and medical terrorism carried through uncoordinated measures. The Canadian economy added 378,000 new jobs in September, Stats Canada says, almost all of them which are full-time positions. The September job gains means that the job market is now within 720,000 positions of where it was in February before the COVID-19 in Canada. March and April saw a huge record of 3 million job loss in Canada before the number started to bounce back in June. Each month since then has been on a steady lower than the previous month until last month, when hiring seemed to have picked up again. That surge means the economy has officially recovered. More than 3/4 of the jobs is lost. For comparison purpose, the U.S. has gained only a little more than half of the jobs is lost. Most of the jobs, new jobs, were full-time work. Only about 44,000 of them were part-time. The gains were also more than twice as many economic has been expecting. Every province added jobs except PEI, which lost 800 jobs. But the most came from the four most populous provinces. Ontario added 167,000. Quebec added 76,000 jobs. British Columbia added 54,000 jobs. And Alberta, 38,000 jobs. September hiring was enough to push the jobless rate down to 9%. For context, in February, Canada's unemployment rate was 5.6% before COVID-19 walloped the economy and pushed it up to a high of 13.7% in May, the highest rate on record. This has fallen steadily in each of the 4 months since then. The last time the Canadian economy was hit by anything remotely similar to the impact of COVID-19 was the recession of 2008-2009. That time, the jobless rate was 6.2% going on to it, before peaking at 8.7% 8 months later in June 2009. It took 9 years for the rate to get back to where it was before. The influx of students and teachers going back to school in September seemed to be giving the job market a boost. The job market was buoyant to not only by the 68,000 education workers who got their jobs during the month, but also became because they allowed parents to do the same in their previous jobs. The number of mothers who got paid work during the month rose by 0.9%, while father, the figure was up by 1.5%. Unemployment for parents now back to where it was, above where it was in February. While it took the job markets to recover more than 3/4 of the job lost to the pandemic, it's still anything but normal. But 1/4 of the Canadians are still working from home. That's 4.2 million people, and more, twice than the numbers who normally do. And while there are 1.8 million people officially categorized as unemployed, which means they want a job but they can't find one, and there's still 1.2 million people affected by the COVID-19 economic shutdown, which means they're employed but working less than they like to or normally do. When we come back, the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic and global news. We will be right back. Welcome back to the show. Ontario could be on the brink of disaster, a Toronto expert said on Wednesday as officials continue to urge families to scrap Thanksgiving gatherings amidst the COVID-19 cases. This week, the province and public health official in the hot zones of Toronto and Ottawa stressed that safe ways to celebrate with your only members of your own household. Should Ontario not heed the warning, some weekends gatherings could become super spreader events once infections attendants return to their home, schools, and workplace, said Dr. Jeff Kwan, a professor of family medicine at the University of Toronto. It's not just about this one transmission event, it's the onward transmission, he said. 10 people gathering, say 4 or 5 get infected, then they go on to their social circles and infect another 5 or 10 and so on. The results could be like a runaway train, given the millions of residents potentially congregating indoors with extended family members from different households, he said. Ontario experienced a 7-day average of more than 600 cases per day, up sharply from a 7-day average of fewer than 100 cases per day at the start of August. The province has been struggling to tackle the high demand for testing and an existing backlog of more than 55,000 tests. Most contact tracing efforts in Toronto has been suspended because of the dramatic rise in infections. Against that backdrop, Ontario officials are now encouraging households only celebration for Thanksgiving, while saying people who live alone can pair up with one other household. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Premier Doug Ford said residents let their guard down on the previous holidays, such as Labor Day weekend, which has led to increase of cases. But there's also several more sharp differences between those earlier festivals and Thanksgiving, Kwan said. Unlike the long weekends of spring and summer, Thanksgiving traditionally celebrated indoors, given the colder weather. Also, it often marks the first time college and university students return home from campus, and now falls against a backdrop of already rising cases. Things are a little bit out of control already, he said. It's not like cases are going down, silly like they were earlier in the summer. Dr. Siobhan Dillon, Vice President of Physician Quality at the Unity Health, which includes St. Michael's and St. Joseph's Hospital in Toronto, agreed that climate has changed. The same activity that we could do with relative low risk are at 50 to 70 cases per day are now much higher at 500 to 700 cases per day, he said. China announced on Friday to join a global scheme for the distribution of the COVID-19 backed by the World Health Organization, giving a major boost to the development shunned by U.S. President Donald Trump. Beijing, the latest bid to join the global fight against the coronavirus, follows the criticism over its handling of the pandemic, which led to a huge, growing unfavorable view of China in advanced nations, a recent survey shows. We are taking this concrete step to ensure incredible distribution of vaccine, especially to developing countries, and hope more countries are willing to join and support, Foreign Ministry spokesperson said in a statement. The statement did not detail the support Beijing will provide to the COVAX program, which aims to deliver at least 2 billion doses of vaccine by the end of 2021. In May, President An Jin pledged $2 billion US over the next 2 years to tackle the pandemic, which has killed more than 1 million people. China, where the virus first reported late last year, was also in talks with WHO to have its domestically made vaccine, assess it for international use. As many as 171 nations had joined the program to back equal access to COVID-19 vaccine for rich and poor countries alike, particularly includes about 36 wealthy self-financing ones, but neither the U.S. or Russia. COVAX is co-led by the Gene Vaccine Alliance, the WHO, the Coalition for Economic Preparedness Innovation. It is designed to discourage national government from hoarding COVID-19 vaccine and to focus first on vaccinating the most high-risk people in every country. Vaccines deals are underway, and we are fast approaching our initial fundraising target for jumpstart support for lower-income countries. The chief executive, Dr. Seth Berkley, told Reuters in a statement. What seems like an impossible challenge a few months ago, ensuring every country rich or poor get rapid access to COVID-19, is now becoming a reality. The move will mean that China will be procuring vaccines for their own population, just as with other countries. It's also inducted hundreds of thousands of workers and essential workers for the incomplete clinical trial that has provoked safety concerns among experts. A fire spread through a high-rise apartment building last night in the South Korean port city early Friday, causing injuries to scores of people, officials said. Footage from the scene shows a huge ball of orange flame soaring from up the 33-floor building and shooting through the roof as firefighter tries to put out the blaze below. There was no immediate report of death or serious injuries. Hundreds of residents fled as the fire broke out, while workers rescued another 37 who had escaped to the roof or other space. South Korean Ministry of the Interior and Safety said at least 88 people were treated for minor injuries, such as scratches or lightly inhaling smoke. Officials investigating the cause of the fire, which as they said it was nearly put out as a 9 a.m. local time. When we come back, we're going to talk about some tips to get through the Thanksgiving long weekend, especially during a pandemic. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. We have some tips to deal with the family during the long weekend, especially during a pandemic. We know that this year has been hard for many, and the pandemic has affected. As we know, this weekend is a long weekend for Canadian Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving long week. Some of the tips, as mentioned by a public health official, is keep your family gatherings to a small. Have them in your household. But if you have to have people in your household, make sure that you have hand sanitizer. Make sure your food is prepped, your clean area is prepped, and also to have encourage the most vulnerable, your seniors, your grandparents, your parents, elderly family members. You can help them. Just bring food or to their house or something like that, or have a way to make sure they're protected. Also, if you're feeling sick, have symptoms like COVID, high fever, coughing, hard time breathing, etc., just stay home. Just stay home and stay safe. Maybe just order food from Skip the Dishes or Uber or something like that to have bring to your house, like a Thanksgiving dinner from one of the restaurants. But most importantly, keep the COVID number low so that we can have, as Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau mentioned earlier today in a press conference, to have, so we can have Christmas with our family and friends. Keep the curve low as we're entering not only the flu season, cold season, but also the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been beginning to hit many parts of the world, including Canada, Ontario, British Columbia, and also some parts of the States. As Bonnie Henry would put in BC, be calm, be kind, be safe. And wish you guys a very happy long weekend this weekend, and see you Monday for a special edition